You open your Bibles to 2 Kings chapter 6. We'll begin in verse 24. Give you a little reminder here. When you go all the way back, remember 1st and 2nd Kings is only one book, so you have to keep the connection here. You know, the last time in First Kings, when we read about Elijah, what was Elijah's mental state in 1 Kings? Total discouragement, right? He's the only one left. He's very discouraged. And what would you say he was discouraged about? That's a great answer. Thank you. Yes. Sometimes people give the answer, well, you know, Jezebel was trying to kill him and all this. No, really, the whole thing is he had just had this great victory on Mount Carmel, and it's just like, man, we got it. And Jezebel goes, I'm going to take your head off. And he just, wait a minute, I thought we solved all of this. And it appears to him he solved nothing. Now that helps you understand why the beginning 10 chapters or so of 2 Kings is what it is, with those multiplicity of little miracles and little things that keep taking place where God jumps in and does this and does this. And everywhere Elisha goes, Elisha's just got everything calm, cool, and collected. Very different than the last days of Elijah, where he is beside himself and think, I've just wasted my life. Here I preached all these years, and it just got me nowhere. But then when you have Elisha, everything that comes up, Elisha's got this, God's got this. And so you keep seeing that. So if you ever when you get a little wondering, what's that funny little miracle he did there with the axe head? And what's that funny little thing he did here with throwing the stick in and flour in the poisonous pot of stew and all those things? It's continuing to say, no, God has not left. And this God is still in the process of doing the things that he is intended to do to the house of Israel and for the house of Israel. So these things keep going on, and God's patience is seen, God's desire for their repentance. He keeps poking at the kings to try to get this, and God's desire to show his glory through judgment against those who are rebellious. So those are the things you're going to see. It's going to be a downhill slide, of course. You can have some ups, but it's going to be a downhill slide when you get to 2 Kings 17. Northern kingdom goes into captivity. You get to 2 Kings 25 at the very end of the book. Judah's going to go into captivity, but still, all is not lost. The very end of 2 Kings is going to give us a little pinch of hope and go, nope, God's got this. So it is a great, great lesson for us to remember that no matter how dark things get, no matter how deep things get in sin and wickedness and stuff, we need to understand God's presence is there. And so it's great section because of the dark days, but God there. So I just want you to keep that in mind all the time. So last we saw was in the beginning of 2 Kings 6. You remember you have the situation where the Syrians find out that Elisha has been listening in the bedroom, everything the king is doing. So they surround, come with their horses and chariots, and they surround the city. And remember, Gehazi is just all, oh my goodness, we're all going to die. And he says, he opens his eye. You'll see there in verse 17 of 2 Kings 6. Then Elisha prayed and said, "O Lord, please open his eyes that he may see." So the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses, chariots, and fire all around. When you're at your darkest moment, open your eyes. Open your eyes. That's very, very important. That principle is still there. We need to remember it. Okay, so once that happens, and they feed him a great feast. Chapter 6, verse 24. Afterward, Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, mustered his entire army and went up and besieged Samaria. So we got maybe, who knows how long went by, but the king finally goes, oh, I got to go whack Samaria some more. And so verse 25, there was a great famine in Samaria, and as they besieged it, until a donkey's head was sold for 80 shekels of silver, and the fourth part of a cab of dove's dung was for 5 shekels of silver. A donkey's head. What are they going to do with the donkey's head? They're going to eat it. What's wrong with that? Not much. That's true. We used to get a lot out of my pigs that I raised. Yeah. No, good. It was not a clean animal. That is exactly right. So they have resorted to, who cares what it is? If I can eat it, I'm going to eat it. And that is excellent, Wayne. That's exactly right. This is not a clean animal, but that's okay. And it's being sold for a lot of money. What are they going to do with a fourth of a cab of dove's dung? I hope, that. Are they going to eat it, or are they going to use it to cook with? Yeah, probably use it to cook something with. I hope that's who knows. When you get this get as bad as they did, who knows? But usually that's what they remember with Ezekiel when he was indicating the famine. He was supposed to use dung to cook his food in front of all the people. So that's what you're seeing here. We've already seen the defeat of that. So. Going on then in verse 26. Now as the king of Israel was passing by on the wall, a woman cried out to him, saying, "Help, my lord, O king." And he said, "If the Lord will not help you, how shall I help you? From the threshing floor or from the winepress?" He's being facetious here. Where am I going to get any help? Threshing floor? Winepress? There's nothing. And the king asked her, "What is your trouble?" And she answered, "This woman said to me, give your son that we may eat him today, and we'll eat my son tomorrow. So we boiled my son and ate him. And on the next day I said to her, give your son that we may eat him. But she has hidden her son." When the king heard the words of the woman, he tore his clothes. Now he was passing by on the wall, and the people looked, and behold, he had sackcloth beneath on his body. And he said, "May God do so to me, and more also, if the head of Elisha, the son of Shaphat, remains on his shoulders today." Elisha was sitting in his house, and the elders were sitting with him. Now the king had dispatched a man from his presence, but before the messenger arrived, Elisha said to the elders, "Do you see how this murderer has sent to take off my head? Look, when the messenger comes, shut the door and hold the door fast against him. Is not the sound of his master's feet behind him?" In other words, the king is coming behind him. And while he was still speaking with him, the messenger came down to him and said, "This trouble is from the Lord. Why should I wait for the Lord any longer?" All right, so there's the setup. What do you? A couple things you may notice there. What's a couple things there you would think is significant and interesting to you? First off, obviously, they're eating their kids. So tell me what you should conclude from that.
They're far away from the Lord.
Pardon?
They're far from the Lord.
They are way far. That's right. They are way far from the Lord. What else should trigger in your mind of hearing them, they're eating their kids?
One of the curses.
Good. That's right, Allison. One of the curses of Deuteronomy chapter 28. Skip back there right quick. Take a look. Deuteronomy 28, verse 49. And God had warned them of these things if they continued to disobey him. Deuteronomy 28, verse 49. The Lord will bring a nation against you from afar, from the end of the earth, swooping down like an eagle, a nation whose language you do not understand, a hard-faced nation who shall not respect the old or show mercy to the young. It shall eat the offspring of your cattle and the fruit of the ground until you have destroyed. It shall also leave you no grain, wine, or oil, and increase the increase of your herds or the young of your flock until they have caused you to perish. They shall besiege you in all your towns and your high and fortified walls in which you trusted throughout all your land. They'll besiege you in all your towns throughout all your land which the Lord has given you. And you shall eat the fruit of your womb, the flesh of your sons and daughters, whom the Lord your God has given you in the siege and the distress which your enemies distress you. And he goes on to say they're going to eat their children and etc. That's unimaginable, isn't it? We have seen, and if you've lived very long, you have seen severe famines in African lands and other places. You don't ever hear of them eating their children. It's pretty amazing that they got that low. This is not the last time they will eat their children. This is the first, I think, that we read about it. You're going to see them eating their children during the siege of Assyria, the siege of Babylon, and the siege of Rome in Matthew chapter 24. They're going to do it every time.
It's also a bit of a perversion of the story earlier in the book of Kings, Solomon and the two women, where to the end of that, Solomon in all his wisdom, and the king is blaming God, and these women are doing something far more immoral, you might say, and far more horrific than what happened.
What happened with Solomon was an accident. A woman rolled over on her own child and killed the child and then stole the other woman's child. In this case, it's hard to imagine two women just looking at each other, hey, why don't we just eat our children? Well, that's a great idea. Why didn't we think? Why didn't somebody think of that before? And it's just absolutely unimaginable. So you don't even want to think about how that went down. It's too terrible. So you're seeing this, and then as you noticed, the blame goes on the Lord. And I'm going to kill Elisha. Why does that make sense? Why do you think that makes sense to them? Same Syrian army, and they conclude God has sent the Syrian army. Now, God had saved them from the Syrian army, though. But see, here's Elisha stands for God. If you're speaking about God, you're speaking about Elisha. That's just the way they look at it. If we can't kill God, we'll kill Elisha. Maybe we can get God off our shoulders if we can kill Elisha.
That's what they did with all the prophets.
Yeah.
Kill the messenger.
Exactly, and remember Jesus talking about that. You killed the prophets, and then you're going to kill me as well. So the same reaction here, and so the famine is obviously Elisha's fault. Now, if they knew the law of the Lord, what would be the reason for the famine? Yeah, they were the reason. They had turned away from God, and God told them plainly in the book of Deuteronomy, if you stop obeying me, you will have a famine. I am going to stop bringing rain, and that's it.
It seems like the king understands this because he's wearing sackcloth, which is, and it was under his clothes, so people wouldn't see it.
True.
When the woman cried from below the wall to his clothes, they saw that he was wearing sackcloth underneath. The message there is that even he recognized that their sin.
But just, isn't that interesting? As Chip said, he recognizes this deep down, but he's so stubborn. He is not going to give up his lifestyle. And boy, we have to be careful with that kind of, as the Hebrew writer said, don't harden your heart. It's easy to do. You can get yourself in a little snippet and you don't want to change your life, and you just harden your heart, stiffen yourself up. And so great warning there. All right, notice in chapter 7 now, But Elisha said, hear the word of the Lord. Thus says the Lord, tomorrow about this time a seah of fine flour shall be sold for a shekel, and 2 seahs of barley for a shekel at the gate of Samaria, which is just a total reversal. Now there's actually going to be real food, not donkeys' heads and dove dung and stuff like this. It's going to be real food, and it's going to be cheap. In 24 hours. This is the way this is going to happen. The captain on whose hand the king leaned said to the man of God, if the Lord himself should make windows in heaven. This is a really bad thing to say about God, by the way. Don't ever question what God says he can do. Should make windows in heaven. Could this thing be? But he said, you shall see it with your own eyes, but you shall not eat of it. What a scary red flag right there. If you're the captain right here and you know anything about a prophet, you should say, I'm so sorry, shut my mouth. I believe. But instead he's going to stick with it. And you just see the calmness of Elisha through this whole thing, but just an uncanny disrespect for Yahweh. Yahweh is just another God. He can't do that. Are you kidding me? Crazy. Verse 3. Now there were 4 men who were lepers at the entrance of the gate, and they said to one another, we are sitting here, and why are we sitting here until we die? If we say, let us enter the city, the famine is in the city, and we shall die there. And if we sit here, we die also. So now come, let us go over to the camp of the Syrians. If they spare our lives, we shall live, and if they kill us, we shall but die. So they arose at twilight to go to the camp of the Syrians, but when they came to the edge of the camp of the Syrians, behold, there was no one there. For the Lord had made the army of the Syrians hear the sound of the chariots and the horses, and of horses, the sound of a great army, so that they said to one another, behold, the king of Israel has hired against us the kings of the Hittites and the kings of Egypt to come against us. So they fled away in the twilight and abandoned their tents, their horses, and their donkeys, leaving the camp as it was, and fled for their lives. And when these lepers came to the edge of the camp, they went into the tent and ate and drank, and they carried off silver and gold and clothing and went and hid them. Then they came back and entered another tent and carried off things from it and went and hid them. Then they said to one another, we are not doing right. This day is a day of good news. If we are silent and wait until the morning light, punishment will overtake us. Now therefore come, let us go and tell the king's household. Tell me about that. This is one of those things where it is you just lob the softball up and hit it. How would you draw an application from that?
The most amazing news. There is a parallel to the gospel here, because the disease that could not be cured, leprosy, sin, you're announcing the cure, and it's impossible to sin.
Now here they have stumbled on this fantastic wealth to solve a horrible famine. And they gorge themselves, and they take away a whole bunch of stuff and hide it, and they start to take away a bunch more and hide it, and all of a sudden they look at each other and go, just down the road here, all of our people are starving to death. If we don't, this is such good news, if we don't share this, we'll be punished. We are the ones with the good news. And it is so, so important that we learn that wonderful lesson that God keeps repeating to us all through the Bible.
It reminds me of your lesson on Sunday, and that the apostles don't really ever say, go tell other people about this, but there are stories like this that kind of, model what would any sane person do in that situation other than go tell everyone.
That's right. That's exactly right. I have long argued that there's a major difference. It is a major difference between someone who really, really appreciates and feels the weight of what God has done to forgive them of their sins. The greatness of the gift. The more you appreciate the greatness of the gift, the more you have compassion on others. It is exactly like Simon the Pharisee and the sinful woman and Jesus' little parable. When Simon is like, you let this woman touch you and all of this. And of course, Jesus' answer is there were two debtors. One owed 50 denarii, small amount. One owed 500. When neither could repay, he forgave them both. Which will love him more? And of course, Simon said, I suppose the one he's forgiven more. And he says, that's exactly right. This woman loved much because she's forgiven much. You love little because you're forgiven little. When you know what God did for you, and this is a dangerous thing for us who grew up on the pew, because we didn't do really bad things like other people or something like that. When neither could repay, he forgave us. So that is a huge, huge thing. And the more you realize it, and as you draw closer to God, the weight and knowledge of your failure becomes more evident. And in so doing, the weight and gift of the grace of God becomes greater. And your love then grows for him because of what he's done. That's a process of growing closer to God, and as you do, all of those things start falling into place. It's the danger of not growing closer to God and just saying, I'm a good Christian, I got this, there's, and you just coast. Then you'll never get to where you should be, where you really, really are absolutely wake up every day and give thanks to him for the breath he's given you and the life he's given you. So incredibly important. Okay, so you see that beautiful situation here, and God bringing the abundance then from the famine. Go on then in verse 10. So they came and called to the gatekeepers of the city and told them, we came to the camp of the Syrians, and behold, there was no one to be seen or heard there, and nothing but the horses tied and the donkeys tied and the tents as they are. Then the gatekeepers called out, and it was told within the king's household, and the king rose in the night. He wakes him up in the middle of the night, pretty good, and said to his servant, I'll tell you what the Syrians have done. They know that we are hungry. Therefore they have gone out of the camp to hide themselves in the open country, thinking that when they come out of the city, we shall take them alive and get into the city. And one of his servants said, let some men take 5 of the remaining horses, and seeing that those who are left here will fare like the whole multitude of Israel who have already perished. Let us send and see. So they took 2 horsemen. He didn't 5. Let's just take 2. And the king sent them after the army of the Syrians, saying, go and see. So they went after them, and as far as the Jordan, and behold, all the way was littered with garments and equipment the Syrians had thrown away in their haste. And the messengers returned and told the king. Then the people went out and plundered the camp of the Syrians. So a seah of fine flour was sold for a shekel, and 2 seahs of barley for a shekel, according to the word of the Lord. Now the king had appointed the captain on whose hand he leaned to have charge of the gate. Got a gatekeeper. And the people trampled him in the gate so that he died, as the man of God had said when the king came down to him. For when the man of God had said to the king, 2 seahs of barley shall be sold for a shekel, and a seah of fine flour for a shekel, about this time tomorrow in the gate of Samaria, the captain had answered the man of God, if the Lord himself should make windows in heaven, could such a thing be? And he had said, you shall see it with your eyes, but you shall not eat of it. So it happened to him, for the people trampled him in the gate, and he died. What is conspicuously absent in this story here? What'd you say, Michelle? Thanks to God. That's right. That's right. Thankfulness to God. It's interesting to see all that through. Does anybody turn away from the Baal worship? No. Does anybody turn away from the calf worship? No. Do they continue doing what they've always done? Even though Elisha stood right there and said, here's what's going to happen tomorrow. This was a sign to them that God was still working and that God had saved their lives. And they refused to change. You know, don't you think it's important for us all to always look back at our lives and look back and say, I remember how bad it was back then. I remember how low I was. I remember how hopeless I felt. And now I look back and go, wow, look what God did. Look how He brought me through that. We ought to all be able to do that and see the hand of God. And then because of that, calm down like Elisha does and goes, He's there. He's got this. Terrific, terrific. I think it's so sad that we have often read through kings like this and we go, oh, neat stories, neat stories, neat stories. Now, these are incredible signs to us that we should live with that kind of hope. Any other comments, questions? Okay. Really, really, really cool stuff there. Yeah, Chip.
Not really anything to elucidate, but I can't help but to share. But I can't help but think about this servant who tells the king, you know, maybe you ought to go check it out. And it reminds me of Langley Leper had to have a servant girl say to her, you know, if he'd asked you to do something great, wouldn't you have done it? So at least go try it.
Yeah,
Go dip in the Jordan 7 times. So it's interesting to me that someone in a lowly position brings sense to someone who's rather arrogant.
See that in Ecclesiastes a lot of times, don't we? So, yeah, great point. Very, very good. All right, going on then, the summary then of chapter 7. I thought I'd mention this here. Again, even in the midst of such a sinful nation, the great despair that is going on, the horrible king that is ruling, God has not been defeated. And even though, you know, if you're in the midst of it, you, as a righteous person, you might look around and go, this is one big nation of junk. This is just terrible how these people act. And yet God still there, still doing His work, and we put our hope in Him. Wait on the Lord, remember? Wait on the Lord. We get very impatient. So, good lesson there, all right? Anybody else before we go in chapter 8? All right, very good. All right, so chapter 8, now we have some changes here as things are going to ramp up with Syria, and God going to continue to show Himself to the people. So we begin here in 1 through 6, another famine, surprise, surprise, this time a very significant famine, 7 years. Now Elisha had said to the woman whose son he had restored to life, arise and depart with your household and sojourn wherever you can, for the Lord has called for a famine, and it will come upon the land for 7 years. So the woman arose and did according to the word of God. She went with her household and sojourned in the land of the Philistines 7 years. Draw a conclusion. Stop right there. Draw a conclusion.
There's a couple of conclusions. The first is there's no famine for the Philistines.
That's right. It's great.
There's no famine for the Philistines. And then when God seeks to provide salvation, He has them go to the Philistines as opposed to staying in Israel.
Yes. Isn't that something? That's just amazing. You know, as bad as the Philistines are, the Philistines is where you can eat. Israel is where you can't. And if you're going to escape somewhere other than Israel. Go anywhere. She goes to the Philistines. Everything's fine for 7 years. Wow. If that's not a God going, I'm doing this. Over and over again, you see that. Verse 3, and at the end of 7 years, when the woman returned from the land of the Philistines, she went to appeal to the king for her house and her land. Now the king was talking with Gehazi, the servant of the man of God, saying, tell me all the great things that Elisha has done. And while he was telling the king how Elisha had restored the dead to life, behold, the woman whose son he had restored to life appealed to the king for her house and her land. And Gehazi said, my lord, O king, here is the woman. Here is her son, whom Elisha restored to life. And when the king asked the woman, she told him. So the king appointed an official for her, saying, restore all that is hers, together with all the produce of the fields from the day that she left the land until now. All right? Couple of observations and maybe even a question about what you just saw. Listen.
Isn't Gehazi supposed to have leprosy?
There's your good one. That's right. That's the first thing that should come to your mind. Go, wait a minute. I thought Gehazi got leprosy, went out white as snow, and and probably living in a cave somewhere, going unclean, unclean. What's he doing here? Answer? Wild guesses? Huh? It's chronological. It's pretty chronological. And I tried that one, and that didn't seem to work out.
They don't care about what's clean and unclean anymore.
They don't care about what's...
They're not different.
Even Elisha? He's still the servant of the man of God. He's been mentioned, in fact, in the previous chapter without his name.
I don't care who he is. If he's got leprosy, he wouldn't be around.
That's right.
It could have been, but even it says his children. It may not have been the son of Gehazi.
It's got to be the same guy. You got to be the same guy.
I've never known another guy like that.
Somebody's going to come up with a better possibility.
She had faith.
Pardon?
Faith? Her faith?
I can't hear you.
She had faith that she was going to give
Well, I'm talking about the servant of God.
you're talking about Elisha.
Yeah, she's great. Yeah, she had faith, she had all things, and yeah, right. But I'm talking about the servant of God who got leprosy back in chapter 5 because he took from Naaman, and it said the last we read of him, he's had leprosy, and all of a sudden we're reading about him again, and this is on down the line historically, and he's right here he's telling the king about what was done for this woman, and that's back in chapter 4. So we're going way back. So couldn't hear you.
He's carrying out his commandment that he was given in chapter 19, I think.
Okay.
He had a couple commandments, I think. I haven't been in 2 Kings in a minute. I haven't been in Kings for a while, so I'm just trying to figure.
Yeah, try to, and it is. It's a conundrum, and I'll tell you right now, we don't know for absolute sure, but maybe you have a guess there, Jared.
My only other guess or logical conclusion would be that maybe he repented and was restored.
I think that's the most logical possibility. He may have repented, pleaded with. That would make sense. He pleaded with God, and God took it back. God's done that before, and he'll do it again. That was the kinds of thing. So that, I think, is the most likely conclusion, but we are never told. But I would think that was probably the most likely, and Gehazi then stands before Elisha and now the king. So anyway, but that's a good observation, Melissa. All of a sudden you go, what's he doing there? It's the same thing I did. I went, what's he doing there? He's not supposed to be there. So really weird. And then the second thing, of course, is you see that here is a righteous woman, and what's God doing? He takes care of the righteous. He provides for her. Even though she's been gone 7 years, everything's going to be restored to her. And so we keep seeing the contrast between what God does for the righteous and the punishment that he gives the wicked, but opening the door for them to repent, and they don't. And that you're seeing that contrast. Okay? How we doing? Any other questions, comments? Yeah.
Yeah, on top of that too, just considering she was utterly hopeless and
Yes.
her family line and everything was ended by all accounts. And similar to when Jesus raises the widow's son in the New Testament,
Right.
where it's like, okay, this woman is done. But instead, now her son is restored, her family line, her land, everything.
Yeah, it's just pretty marvelous picture in the midst of darkness and terribleness. And here God is taking care of it. It's just obvious of what the message he's sending. Excellent. Okay? Anything else?
I mean, we also see the king responding to this story.
Yes.
Elisha did, which is really interesting.
Isn't that weird?
It's also interesting that he restores her field and her produce, and his father is the one who stole Naboth's field. We kind of have like a reversal.
Yes. Yes. That's good. And that it's really interesting that it's very important because you're really, all of a sudden you're going, here's this king. He seems to waffle a bit. Let me kill Elisha, and the next thing you know, he's listening to the good stories about Elisha and how Elisha raised the dead and how's this. And are you coming around, king? Are you beginning to think maybe you've been wrong? Well, we have a glimmer of hope, but it gets dashed. This would be Jehoram. So that's Ahab and Ahaziah, and then Jehoram. He lives longer. Ahaziah had a 1-year deal. Jehoram is 8 years or something like this. Okay, so going then to verse 7. Now Elisha came to Damascus. Ben-Hadad, the king of Syria, was sick. And when it was told him, the man of God has come here. We might draw a conclusion here. The man of God has come for who? The king of Syria? Maybe the king of Syria called for the man of God. It seems seems to be the possibility here of what took place. Verse 8, the king said to Hazael, take a present with you and go to meet the man of God and inquire of the Lord through him, saying, shall I recover from this sickness? He's not doing what Ahaziah did when he was sick back in chapter 1, where he called upon Baal and asked him, I'm going to live. Here is the Syrian king who asked Yahweh, a prophet of Yahweh, if I'm going to live. So you see the contrast. Keeps popping up over and over again. Israel's worse than the nations around them, and God will say that at the end of Kings. They're worse than Sodom and Gomorrah and every other nation. That's how bad they've gotten. So interesting thing there. So go ask. Verse 9. So Hazael went to meet him and took a present with him, all kinds of goods of Damascus, 40 camels' loads. And when he came and stood before him, he said, your son Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, has sent me to you, saying, shall I recover from this sickness? And Elisha said to him, go and say to him, you shall certainly recover, but the Lord has shown me that he will certainly die. That's a little interesting thing, isn't it? And he fixed his gaze on him and stared at him until he was embarrassed. And the man of God wept. And Hazael said, why does my Lord weep? And he answered, because I know the evil that you will do to the people of Israel. You will set fire to their fortresses, and you will kill their young men with the sword, and dash in pieces their little ones, and rip open their pregnant women. And Hazael said, what is your servant, who is but a dog, that he should do this great thing? And Elisha answered, the Lord has shown me that you are to be king over Syria. Then he departed from Elisha and came to his master, who said to him, what did Elisha say to you? And he answered, he told me that you would certainly recover. But the next day he took the bedcloth and dipped it in water and spread it over his face till he died. And Hazael became king in his place. What do you think of that one?
He was going to recover, but
He was going to kill him. Yeah.
he didn't lie.
That's right. He did. And I love how you said it, Wayne, because it's not like Elisha said, go ahead and go kill the guy or anything like that. He said he's going to recover, but you're going to do this. Really? But I know he's going to die. Really? Okay, I'll just fulfill that. It seems to be what takes place here. So
He seems to be taking opportunity.
Yes.
An opportunity, he takes it.
he sees an opportunity and takes it. This is horrifying. It's terrible. But Elisha is able to see, and you can just see him, and he starts crying as he sees ahead how the Syrians are going to come in and how brutal they are going to be. Those are ugly, ugly pictures. And yet again, you want to talk about the curses of Deuteronomy 28, Leviticus 26. Those are the things that God talked about. That these nations that come in, they're not going to have any sympathy on old, young, children, pregnant women, nothing. You need to obey me. If you don't have me protecting you, that's what they'll do. So it is, I've often said, when you read Lamentations, you're reading a earthly picture of what hell is, what it means to be without God. Because when you are without God, you have absolutely no protection from anything. And it's a real, this is just jolt.
And this is the same people that God sent Jonah to?
No, these are the Syrians, not the Assyrians. Yeah, Jonah goes to Nineveh. Same difference as far as wickedness, but that's what the Assyrians did this even worse. I mean, they went through the whole land. It was awful. Yeah, I know, it's easy to do. Syria is the nation just north of Israel. Assyria is over in the northeast. Right. All right, so we see that taking place. Yeah, go ahead.
It's got to be hard for Elisha for him to see the future and know what's going to happen and to live with that.
Yeah, horrifying. And so much, Elisha is one of those guys that God seems to show him an awful lot of what is going to take place, and it's really. Yeah, no, I don't. Honestly, I'm not too happy about seeing futures. It's hard enough to deal with the present.
This is Elisha is fulfilling the commission that was given to Elijah back in 1 Kings chapter 19.
That's right.
Which he knows is going to result in accomplishment.
Yeah, he knows what it's going to happen. It's going to result in all that. Tough thing. I mean, these are the great prophets of the Bible. When you think of the great prophets of the Old Testament, this is a little lesson. You really don't want to think of the literary prophets. They are great prophets, not to take away from that. But the greatest prophets are Elijah and Elisha. These guys, they're in the trenches. They're just really something else. And God, look at how much space God gives to talking about them. It's pretty something else. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say, you see God's response to how the people treat him in these scenarios. And then you can go back to 27 to 25 when the people respond to Pilate saying, his blood be upon us and our children. For what is God's response going to be for what they do to his son?
And it's such good, John, the response, this is God's response. But what's interesting about this, which we should be amazed at, is whose choice was this? God tells them ahead of time, here's the reality. When I'm with you, you got this. Everything's. When I'm not with you, which is your choice, then it's not going to be good. People go, God would send people to hell. You choose to go. Don't give me that. He's given you ahead of time the choice. You either go or you don't. You've got this by the tail, man. It's easy. Not easy, but it's easy to make a choice about, do I want to go to heaven or hell? Now, if I want to go to heaven, here's what I want to do. Here's what God wants of me. Do it. And don't complain when you lose your soul, because you made the choice. It's so silly to blame God, but that's what happens over and again. Chip, you say something.
Well, it's again curious to me why a Syrian kingdom, actually not the king, but the Syrian kingdom would ask a prophet from a foreign country to come over and say, tell us who our next king is. And so he points to that it would be bizarre for Israel to ask the same thing in reverse, to ask Syria, send over one of your prophets and tell us who our next king is.
Yeah.
It's
So
just crazy.
Yeah, it really is. which
But he had more respect for. They had more respect for the
Absolutely.
for the integrity of Elisha than the people.
they do, and have more respect for Yahweh. And that's what the great thing, and not only that, I would just, that indicate God is the God of all nations, which this is making that very, very clear. They thought gods were only over locales. God's the God over the all nations. All right, great job, guys. We will pick up then here at this last part of chapter 8 next week and into chapter 9. Thank you.